The clerk at the passport office didn't just look at her screen. She stopped breathing. I saw the exact moment the color drained from her face, leaving her skin looking like old parchment. My first thought wasn't, I'm in trouble. It was just, great, another bureaucratic screw-up to top off the worst month of my life. I was 34 years old. I had $78 in my checking account. My landlord had changed the locks on my apartment 3 days ago, and everything I owned was currently baking in the trunk of a rusted Honda Civic parked outside. This passport renewal was my Hail Mary. A friend in Toronto said he had a couch for me if I could just get across the border. "Ma'am?" I asked, leaning toward the glass. "Is the photo okay? I know I look tired." She didn't answer. Her hand moved under the desk. A silent alarm. "I know that now." Back then, I just thought she was adjusting her chair. "Please remain here," she said, her voice trembling. System glitch. 2 minutes later, the air inside that sterile government building changed. Heavy boots on tile. The kind of sound that vibrates in your chest. I turned around to see 3 armed security guards and 2 police officers blocking the exit. People in line behind me scrambled back like I was radioactive. A man in a suit, not a cop, something scarier, walked straight up to the window. He looked at the screen, then at me. "Sarah Miller?" he asked.
"Yes."
"What is going on?" "No," he said, and his voice was weirdly gentle. "You aren't Sarah Miller. The owner of that Social Security number died in a house fire in 1993. She was 4 years old." I laughed. I actually laughed. That's insane. I've been Sarah Miller my whole life. My dad. "The man who raised you isn't your father," he interrupted. He stepped closer, ignoring the guards, staring intently at my eyes. He leaned in, close enough that I could smell peppermint and stale coffee, and whispered 3 words that made the floor drop out from under me. "Hello, Agent Keane." I froze. I had never heard that name before. But the terrifying part? My brain didn't reject it. Deep inside, in a place I hadn't touched since childhood, something clicked. A lock opening. And then I ran. I don't know why I ran. It was instinct. Pure animal panic. I bolted past the guards, through the emergency exit, and into the parking lot. I didn't stop driving until I hit the state line, fueled by adrenaline and a sudden, crushing headache that felt like my skull was splitting open. That was 6 hours ago. Now, I'm sitting in a Motel 6, staring at the mirror, trying to figure out whose face I'm looking at. Because the man in the suit was right about one thing. My dad, the man who kicked me out at 19, who told me I was a burden, he lied about everything. But he didn't just lie about who I was. He lied about what I was. To understand why the feds are looking for me, you have to go back to the night I was kicked out. It's the key to the whole thing, though I didn't know it then. I was 19. It was raining, classic, right? My dad, Frank, stood in the doorway of our trailer. He wasn't drunk. Frank didn't drink. That was the weird thing about him. He was disciplined. Military disciplined. He held a black trash bag with my clothes in it. "You're a burden, Sarah," he said. "You're done. Get out." It came out of nowhere. We'd had a quiet dinner. I was talking about community college classes. Then snap. He threw the bag onto the wet gravel. "Why?" I screamed. "What did I do?"
"You're too old," he said.
"The experiment is over." I remember thinking that was a weird word choice. Experiment. But when you're a teenager getting tossed onto the street, you don't parse vocabulary. You cry. I begged him. I pounded on the door until my knuckles bled. He never opened it. For 15 years, I thought he was just a cruel, cold man who got tired of raising a daughter alone. I spent my 20s drifting. Waitressing jobs, bad boyfriends, eviction notices. I always felt like I was waiting for something, but I didn't know what. I had these skills I couldn't explain. I could memorize license plates at a glance. I could tell when someone was lying by the twitch of their left eyebrow. I thought I was just observant. Now, looking at my reflection in this dirty motel mirror, I remembered something else from that night. Just before Frank slammed the door, he handed me a book. A worn-out paperback copy of The Catcher in the Rye. "Read page 104, he'd said. "When you're ready." I'd carried that book for 15 years. I never read it. I was too angry. It was buried at the bottom of the trunk in my Honda. I ran out to the car. My hands were shaking so bad, I dropped the keys twice. I dug through the piles of clothes and old fast food wrappers until I felt the spine of the book. I ripped it open to page 104. There was nothing written there. No secret note. No cash. Just the text. Life is a game, boy. Life is a game that one plays according to the rules. I stared at it. Anger flared up again. Another mind game from Frank. I was about to throw the book across the parking lot when a car pulled in. Black SUV. Tinted windows. The same kind that had been at the passport office. They found me. How did they find me? I ditched my phone hours ago. I ducked below the dashboard. My heart was hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. I watched through the gap in the steering wheel.
2 men got out.
One was the peppermint coffee guy. The other was older, gray hair, walking with a cane. They walked straight to room 12.
My room.
They didn't knock. The older man tapped the lock with something metallic, and the door swung open. They knew exactly where I was. I looked down at the book in my hand. The Catcher in the Rye. I realized then that the page number wasn't about the text. It was a code. Frank taught me codes when I was a kid. He called them logic puzzles. We'd spend hours on Sundays solving ciphers instead of watching football. 104. In our old cipher, 1 was A, 0 was a space, 4 was D.
A. D.
AD? No, that didn't make sense. I flipped the book over. On the back cover, there was a barcode. But it wasn't a normal barcode. It was a sticker placed over the original one. I scratched at it with my thumbnail. Underneath, handwritten in tiny, precise numbers. 34.0522 minus 118.2437. Coordinates. I didn't have a phone to check them. I had to rely on the map in the glove box. I unfolded it, trying to be silent while the men ransacked my motel room, 10 yards away. Los Angeles. Specifically, a storage facility near the river. I waited until they went inside the bathroom of my motel room, then I started the car. I didn't turn on the headlights. I rolled out of the lot in neutral, praying the gravel wouldn't crunch too loud. As soon as I hit the pavement, I gunned it. The drive to LA took 4 hours. I had time to think. Agent Keane. That's what the man called me. I looked at my hands on the steering wheel. They looked like normal hands. But suddenly, a memory surfaced, not a memory, a flash. A white room. A man holding a stopwatch. Me, assembling a rifle blindfolded. I was 6 years old. Good, Keane, the man said. Faster next time. I swerved, nearly hitting a guardrail. The memory was so vivid, I could smell the gun oil. That wasn't my life. My life was trailer parks and mac and cheese and Frank watching TV. But the memory felt realer than any of that. I reached the storage facility at 3 a.m. It was a desolate place, surrounded by chain-link fences topped with razor wire. The gate code? I tried 0-1-0-4. The gate buzzed and slid open. My unit was number 104. Of course it was. It wasn't locked. The padlock was hanging open, as if someone had just been there. I lifted the roll-up door. The smell of dust and old paper hit me. The unit was set up like a small office. A desk, a chair, and walls covered in photos. Hundreds of photos. And they were all of me. Me walking to school at age 8. Me at my first job at the diner. Me arguing with a boyfriend in a parking lot. Me sleeping in my car last week. Frank hadn't kicked me out. He had been watching me every single day. On the desk, there was a single manila envelope. Written on it in Frank's handwriting, Project Alice. I opened it. Inside wasn't a birth certificate.
It was a dossier.
Top secret. Department of Defense. Subject: Alice Keane. DOB: classified. Status: dormant. Objective: long-term sleeper integration. I wasn't Sarah Miller. I was a government experiment. A sleeper agent trained from birth, then deactivated and placed in the real world to see if I could develop normal human emotions. To see if a weapon could learn to be a person. The experiment is over, Frank had said. He meant the normal life experiment. They were recalling me. Hello, Alice. I spun around. Frank was standing in the doorway of the storage unit. He looked exactly the same as the night he kicked me out, just grayer. He held a gun, but it wasn't pointed at me. It was pointed at the entrance behind him.
Dad.
The word felt wrong now. We don't have much time, he said, his voice rough. They tracked your biometrics at the passport office. The scan woke up the system. They know you're active. You ruined my life, I screamed, stepping toward him. You threw me away like garbage. You told me I was a burden. I had to, he snapped. If I kept you, you would have stayed comfortable. You would have stayed soft. I had to break you, Sarah, Alice, whatever you want to call yourself. I had to make you tough enough to survive on your own. Because I knew this day was coming. What day? The day they decided they didn't need a human element anymore. The day they decided to liquidate the assets. He tossed me a set of keys. Black Mustang, 2 rows over. There's cash in the trunk, new IDs, and a drive containing everything they did to you. You need to run. I'm not going anywhere without answers, I said, standing my ground. Who am I really? Frank looked at me with a sadness I'd never seen before. You're the only one that worked. The other 29 subjects, they went unstable. Violent. You were the success. You learned empathy. You learned to suffer without breaking. That's why they want you back. To dissect your brain and see how it works. A siren wailed in the distance. Getting closer. Go! Frank yelled. I'll hold them off. No. I'm not your father, Alice. But I am the man who raised you. And I'm telling you to survive. That was the mission. Survive. He pushed me toward the back exit. I looked back once. Frank was taking a position behind the desk, checking the magazine of his pistol. He looked at me and nodded. A soldier to a soldier. I ran to the Mustang. I peeled out of the storage facility just as the black SUVs swarmed the entrance. Gunfire erupted behind me. I didn't look back. I drove north. I didn't stop for 2 days. I'm recording this in a cabin in Montana. I've gone through the files. It's worse than Frank said. They didn't just train me. They altered me. My DNA. My neural pathways. I can do things.
Scary things.
I can hold my breath for 6 minutes. I can't hear a whisper from across a noisy room. And yesterday, when a bear came near the cabin, I didn't feel fear. I felt calculation. I knew exactly where to strike to kill it with a penknife. I'm scared. Not of them finding me. I can handle them now. I'm scared of losing Sarah. Sarah, who cried over rom-coms. Sarah, who loved bad coffee and worried about rent. I can feel her fading, replaced by Agent Keane. The passport office was the trigger. But Frank kicking me out, that was the training. He gave me 15 years of struggle to build a soul. Now I have to fight to keep it. They're coming. I can hear the rotors of a helicopter about 5 miles out. Most people wouldn't hear it, but I do. I'm not running anymore. I have the drive. I have the evidence. And I have the skills they gave me. My name is Sarah Miller. And Agent Keane is about to show them exactly why I was the success story.
Wait.
You think that's the end? That's what I wanted to be the end. A heroic stand. A fight for identity. But life, real life, or whatever version of it I'm living, doesn't follow a movie script. Because when the helicopter landed, it wasn't a SWAT team that stepped out. It was a woman. She walked up the path to my cabin alone. She was unarmed. She was wearing a beige trench coat and muddy hiking boots. But that wasn't what stopped me cold. That wasn't what made me lower the weapon I'd found in Frank's stash. It was her face. It was my face. Not similar. Identical. Same scar on the chin from a bike accident when I was 7. Same crooked incisor. Same eyes. She stopped 10 feet away from me. She looked tired. Older, maybe, but exactly me. Put the gun down, Alice, she said. Her voice was my voice. Who are you? I asked. Are you a clone? Is that what the other subjects were? She laughed, and it was the dry, bitter laugh I'd used in the passport office.
No.
I'm not a clone. And neither are you. She reached into her pocket. I tensed, finger on the trigger. She pulled out a pack of cigarettes, the same brand I smoked when I was stressed, and lit one. Frank lied to you, she said, exhaling smoke. He always had a flair for the dramatic. Project Alice. Sleeper agent. It makes for a good story, doesn't it? Better than the truth. I saw the files, I argued. I have the drive. The drive Frank gave you, she countered. Frank was a sci-fi writer before he had his breakdown. Did you know that? Failed writer. Paranoid schizophrenic. He created a world where he was important, where he was a handler, not just a sad, lonely man who kidnapped a child. My stomach turned. Kidnapped. 1993, she said. The house fire. The real Sarah Miller died. But her neighbor, a 3-year-old girl named Emily, disappeared the same night. Taken by a man who thought the government was putting chips in people's brains. That's a lie. The feds at the office, the silent alarm. There were no feds, Sarah. Or Emily. Whatever you want to be called. She took a step closer. That was a private investigator I hired. The silent alarm was the clerk calling security because you were flagged as a missing person from a cold case 30 years ago. The man who whispered, Agent Keane? He didn't say that. You hallucinated it. Just like you're hallucinating the helicopter rotors right now. I blinked. The sound of the helicopter, it was gone. Just the wind in the trees. I'm your sister, the woman said. My name is Jessica. We've been looking for you for 30 years. Frank kept you moving, kept you isolated, fed you stories about training to explain why he was so abusive. The skills you have? Trauma responses. Hypervigilance. That's not a super soldier serum. That's PTSD. I lowered the gun. My head was spinning. The White Room? The rifle assembly? Frank made you watch movies, she said, as if reading my mind. He drilled false memories into you. He wanted a partner for his delusion. It made sense. It made terrible, crushing sense. The poverty, the cruelty, the weird logic puzzles. It wasn't spy training. It was madness. I fell to my knees in the dirt. So, I'm nobody? I whispered. I'm not special. I'm just a victim. Jessica knelt in front of me. She put a hand on my shoulder. It felt warm.
Real.
You're a survivor, she said. And you're my sister. You can come home now. No more running. No more missions. I looked at her. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to go home. I wanted to be Emily, the girl who was loved, not Alice, the weapon. I stood up. I dropped the gun. I hugged her. She smelled like lavender laundry detergent. It was the most comforting smell in the world. Thank you. I sobbed into her shoulder. Thank you for finding me. It's okay, she whispered, stroking my hair. It's over. We're going to take care of you. She pulled back and smiled. Let's get your bag. My car is just down the hill. I turned to go back into the cabin to grab the drive, just in case. Even if it was fake, it was all I had of my past. Leave it, Jessica said quickly. Too quickly. I paused. Why? It's just garbage, right? Frank's delusions. Burn it. Start fresh. I looked at her again. Really looked. The scar on her chin, it was on the left side. Mine was on the right. Mirror image. But we weren't looking in a mirror. If she was my sister, why would she have the exact same scar from a specific bike accident I had when I was 7? I was with Frank when I was 7. If she was my sister from before the kidnapping, she wouldn't have that scar. Unless the scar wasn't from a bike accident. Unless it was a mark.
A brand.
You said you hired a PI. I said slowly. How did you get here before him? How did you know about the cabin? I only found the coordinates in the book yesterday. Jessica's smile didn't waver, but her eyes went cold. Dead cold. I'm very resourceful, she said. You called me Alice, I said.
What?
When you walked up, you said put the gun down, Alice. But then you said Frank made up the name Alice. You said my real name was Emily. The silence in the woods was sudden and absolute. The birds stopped singing. Jessica sighed. She reached into her pocket again. But this time, she didn't pull out cigarettes. She pulled out a syringe. Subject 7 was always too perceptive, she said. Her voice changed. It wasn't my voice anymore. It was devoid of inflection. Robotic. Frank warned us the cognitive dissonance might trigger a relapse. Frank works for you, I realized. The betrayal hit harder than a bullet. He didn't save me. He was handling me until the very end. He sent me here to you. Frank is a handler, she confirmed. And I'm not your sister. I'm the replacement. Replacement. You're degrading, Alice. The biological shelf life of your model is 35 years. You're 34. You're breaking down. That headache? The hallucinations? It's necrotic tissue in your frontal lobe. We need to harvest the data before the wetware crashes. She lunged. She was fast. Faster than human. But she was right, I was trained. I ducked her swing and swept her legs. She hit the ground with a thud that sounded too heavy, like dropping a sack of meat. She didn't grunt. She just kip-upped instantly. We fought. It wasn't a bar fight. It was a dance of engineered violence. Every block, every strike, I knew what she was going to do before she did it because we were running the same software. I was fighting myself. She pinned me against a tree, the syringe inches from my neck. It's better this way, she hissed. It's peaceful in the tank. No rent. No pain. Just data. My vision was blurring. The headache was blinding. She was stronger. Newer. You're right, I choked out. I am degrading. Accept it. But Frank taught me one thing that isn't in the manual. She paused. What? Cheating. I didn't try to overpower her. I went limp. She stumbled forward with the momentum. I bit her ear. Hard. Not a tactical strike. Just primal, animal fury. She screamed, a glitchy, distorted sound. I grabbed the rock from the ground and smashed it into her temple. She collapsed. I stood over her, panting. Blood trickled from her ear. But it wasn't red. It was dark. Viscous. I touched my own ear. I was bleeding red. I was the human. She was the whatever she was. I searched her pockets. No phone. No ID. Just a set of car keys and a photo. It was a photo of the passport office clerk. The one who hit the alarm. But on the back, there was a date. Tomorrow. This wasn't over. They were everywhere. I ran to her car. A generic sedan. I threw my bag in the back. As I reached for the ignition, I saw something on the passenger seat. A baby monitor. It was on. Static hissed through it. Then a voice. Project Alice, report. Did you neutralize the obsolete unit? It was Frank's voice. I picked up the monitor. I pressed the talk button. The obsolete unit is dead, I said, mimicking Jessica's flat, robotic tone. Good, Frank said. Return to base for debriefing. The new batch is ready for imprinting. Confirmed, I said. En route. I smashed the monitor. New batch. They were making more. More kids. More stolen lives. I looked at the map on the dashboard. The GPS was set to a location in the Nevada desert. Base. I could run. I could go to Mexico. I could disappear. I looked in the rearview mirror. My face was bruised, bloody, and tired. But my eyes were clear. The headache was gone. Frank was right about one thing. I was a weapon. I put the car in gear. I wasn't going to Mexico. I'm going to Nevada. I'm going to burn it down. Every lab. Every file. Every handler. My father kicked me out at 19. He told me I was a burden. He has no idea what a burden I'm about to become.